Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel, and today we're going to be looking at Alien, the illustrated story by Archie Goodwin and Walt Simonson. This is the official adaptation, comic adaptation of the 1979 film Alien by Ridley Scott. It was originally published in oversized magazine format by Heavy Metal, Heavy Metal magazine known for its amazing science fiction stories. They had a separate publication for this. It wasn't published in the actual Heavy Metal magazine. It was its own separate magazine. And I don't have a copy of that. But I do have this reprint, which is a fairly recent reprint. And I think it's a pretty good reproduction. The color is, well, actually, I'll give you an example. I'll just show you. While I don't have the actual Alien illustrated story, there was a preview published in this issue of Heavy Metal from '79, and you can see this is the color here. And let me try to just pull up the same page there. So yeah, so it's going to be a little bit more saturated. The browns are a little stronger, the blues are a little stronger. But in general, it's actually not that bad of a reproduction, and I do think that the general mood of the individual pages is pretty consistent. Like this page in particular, unless you're really squinting, it's not too far off. So I think it's a pretty okay reproduction. And we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I love the Alien movies. Well, I love the first two Alien movies. I think Alien 1 is one of the best horror movies ever. And I think Aliens is maybe one of the best science fiction movies ever made. Action sci-fi. Got our credits here. Screenplay by Dan O'Bannon. Written by Archie Goodwin. Art by Walt Simonson. Coloring by a lot of different people, including Walt and Louis Simonson. Also, I'll give special note of the lettering by John Workman, who does really good work here. But here is our title page, Alien. We got Walt Simonson reproducing the H.R. Giger type mess of biological matter and bones and metal and stuff in the Alien layout. And we're opening up on a silent spaceship when suddenly noises begin. We get a click, and then suddenly a lot more clicks. Click, binary codes start coming in. The silence ends, and inside these sleeping pods here, somebody wakes up, represented by blackness becoming a vague image and then more detailed image, and we get the awakening, the awakening eye, and it's Kane. Kane is the first one up to the kitchen. He brews some coffee, and we get a quick intro of the rest of the crew of the Nostromo. Captain Dallas, Science Officer Ash, Warrant Officer Ripley and Cat Jones, Ship's Navigator Lambert, Engineer Parker, and his technician Brett. And off the bat, I'll say that Walt Simonson's likenesses are pretty solid. I think that's Yaphet Kotto, for sure. Anytime I see him, I think he nailed that one. Ash, played by Ian Holm, I think looks really good. And I like his oh my god, how am I, Harry Dean Stanton? How can I forget Harry Dean Stanton, the great Harry Dean Stanton's name? But they're waking up. I think they're just a mining company, and they've been doing some deep space mining. They're on their way home, and they were expecting to be awakened by the ship's computer mother when they were close to Earth. So they think that they're almost home right now. They're talking about, the engineers want better pay. They want a better bonus. And they're being told they'll get paid whatever they were contracted for. And Ash tells the captain that there's a light from Mother. She needs to speak with him directly. And on Ash's face, you kind of get that this is what Walt Simonson does in his rendering, where it's just squiggles. Walt Simonson has this style that will trick a person into thinking, I can do that. They can look at, these forms aren't completely perfect. These lines seem kind of haphazard and kind of slapdash, but then you go try to recreate it yourself, and you realize, oh, there's actually a ton of purpose to these squiggles, and they're very precisely added in there. And he knows exactly what to do, what kind of squiggles to do, and where for what effect. So Dallas goes and talks to Mother. Everyone else resumes their position on the ship. We get a nice wide shot of the Nostromo as it's hurtling through space, and the ship's navigator realizes that they are nowhere near Earth. They're still way out in the boondocks of space. What's going on? Why have they been woken up so early? And Dallas informs them of what the information he received from Mother, which is that they've gotten a transmission. And as it's explained by Ash, any systemized transmission indicating possible intelligent origin must be investigated by the crew, even though they're not a rescue team. It's because it's possible that there are people out there who are in danger and need assistance. So they are obligated to try to offer that assistance. And if they don't, they forfeit their entire fee for the operation that they were out there for. So the decision is basically made once money becomes involved. Once the idea of forfeiting their fee is broached, they're like, okay, we'll go ahead, we'll land, we'll redirect. They go to listen to the transmission, and John Workman puts in some work with the lettering. The transmission is just depicted here by these big, harsh red letters on a blue background. There's no real words. I think these are some. This is some Cyrillic alphabet. That's a J right there. I've got it. Yeah. So just a little bit of everything, and they can't make heads or tails of it. So they just know that they're going to be heading down to the planet to investigate shortly. And I love the use of color throughout here. I believe it's watercolor because there are little like indications of it throughout. This panel here, it's really strange. I'm gonna see if I can get it captured on the video here, but you can kind of see like text behind the background that doesn't really have any business being there. I don't know that it's supposed to be like a computer screen readout or something. I think that they just, when they scanned this, maybe there was text on the paper that was beneath the watercolor page, and it just kind of seeped through. It's super weird, and it was super interesting to see in this edition. I love when the Nostromo blasts off. I love the way that Walt Simonson draws big explosions or big energy, just like expulsions. Again, knowing what squiggles to use where. No one's better at it than Walt, I think, when it comes to the little squiggles. The Nostromo, they have a separate vessel that breaks off from the main mining station. The smaller ship breaks off, and it's heading down to the planet, as we see here. And it's going full burn into the atmosphere where the transmission is coming from. And I talked about liking the color because the color, like, it changes. It's very much mood lighting throughout. But even though it's mood lighting throughout, it's consistent. Like, you can always tell when you're changing the scene or the setting because the main lighting in that panel will be different. So here we're in space. We got this big red light that's all around it, red. And then when we cut in to the inside the Nostromo, it's blue in the background. So we get that contradiction or that the parallel of different locations. So we know that we're changing locations all the time, and you'll see that throughout. So as they're pulling up to the planet, there are problems throughout the Nostromo. The engine is threatening to catch fire. Everyone's strapping in. There's a lot of chaotic movement. They've got these like fire extinguisher like torch guns out that they're spraying all over the place. And once they do land safely. We get we're down, and then again a big John Workman boom sound effect, very reminiscent of what Workman would do with Walt Simonson in Thor in years to come, with these just big bold sound effects. and we get the splash of red that kind of breaks the panel to emphasize that something really like bad has happened, and we get really crazy lighting inside. Things are sparking off, a ton of this foam to put fires out. Their intakes got overheated. They got an electrical fire. They burned out an energy cell. So what this amounts to is that they're downed. They're stuck here for a little while. They're going to have to repair it. It's going to take maybe about a day or so. I forget what estimate they give. But in the meantime, they do have to go answer this transmission. There is still the warning out there, or the signal out there that they have to investigate. Another really good use of lighting with they're sitting perched and they've got the high beams on, and just using the circles to represent that the beam of light. Everything's around the ship is engulfed in the yellow, but everything outside of it is just the cool blue. And again, using color to indicate a scene change. They're going down to the planet's surface to investigate, and now we're in a different location. We have different. It's kind of green, kind of yellow, as they go to look for it. And then inside the ship, it's very brown behind them. So we can tell there's a difference between where all these characters are. I don't know why, but I do really like this panel, this middle panel of Dallas and Lambert and Kane just walking through the planet's surface. I love the spacesuit design. I know that it pretty much matches the movie, but Simonson's interpretation of it, I think, is really strong. Again, just knowing where to add shading, the effective use of colors to offset the fact that brown is kind of a boring color. And then it's met again with an extreme offsetting as the sun rises on the planet. We get this extreme color, and as they are continuing on, they're approaching, they slowly come into view of what's finally emitting the signal. And we know that that's what's happening because that signal is coming back in the background from John Workman, those big letters. And on the page turn, we get the ship. The source of the signal is a monstrous ship. They got our characters here way dwarfed in the bottom left corner here. And even though there's not a lot of variation in the color, or a lot of different colors, there's enough variation here where it's very it works really, really well. The ship is very green, and it's got different shades of green and black. The sky and the lower atmosphere has like pink dust, and then in the sky itself has orange. The ground is more of a gray blue. Our characters are red so that they stand out. That's what I say by like it's mood lighting. It doesn't necessarily have to be realistic. It's what works to have everybody be noticeable, have everything stand out. And now again, the change in the colors, we go from this bright orange and pink, but now we're investigating further. We're going down, so that color changes to a little bit, still kind of yellow green, and then as they descend further, it becomes all this just blue purple. So we're changing our locations very clearly, and great, fantastic drawing of the space jockey. This is very impressive work, in my opinion. I just think it's a great drawing, and of course, credit to H.R. Giger for coming up with it. But I think Simonson does a very, very solid job with it. So they find this alien life. It's dead. It's fossilized, and they find that this is where the transmission's coming from. But job's not done yet. Got to go further in. Got to go see what this ship's all about. And they descend into this huge shaft, and they see these things sitting down at the bottom here. What's those? Let's go investigate this. Let's go put our faces right up against those things. Meanwhile, back on the ship, and again, color change in the background. We're changing locations. Ripley is saying that she thinks that she's deciphered, or Mother has deciphered the transmission. It's not a call for help. It is a warning to stay away. But Science Officer Ash is telling them there's no point in going out to try to retrieve them. We only have minimum takeoff capability now. There's barely enough people left on the ship. What's the point? And the time it takes to get there, they'll know if it's a warning or not. Um, so they are investigating these big egg-like things that are laying on the ground. Kane gets a little close. He notices that most of them are sealed up, but this one here, while his back is turned, opens up slowly, and we get his spotlight turning into it so that we can kind of get that better view of it opening up as well. And as he leans in, something with an enormous tail leaps out just into his face that is cut off on the panel border. Harsh red to emphasize the action, fade to black as he goes unconscious. They drag Kane back to the ship. Ripley is trying to say, like, hey, you can't come back on the ship. You were in contact with some kind of thing. We don't know what it is. You have to be quarantined for 24 hours. So Dallas and Lambert are screaming, let us in, let us in. She's saying, no, you got to stay out, quarantine. And Ash overrules Ripley's order, goes and opens the inner hatch anyway, and they could bring in Kane on the stretcher. We're on the med deck now, the infirmary, and we get a close-up of what's going on with Kane. He's got a face hugger attached to him. It's pulsing slowly as the narration indicates. And so they're trying to kind of poke around this thing, trying to get it off of his face, but as they're doing it, it's latched on so tightly, but to peel off the face hugger would peel off Kane's face as well, so they just kind of have to leave it on. Lambert punches Ripley for not letting them in, but Ripley says, hey, I was doing my job. You know, that's the whole reason that I'm here, and that was the protocol, and Ash shouldn't have overridden that. They decide that they're going to try to cut the face hugger off of Kane, and so they go in and they try to cut its leg, and it spits out this acid. Acid gushes onto the floor, and it starts going through the decks, and they're afraid it's going to breach the hull. Really good vertical panel here where we're seeing it go through the multiple decks and then stop as they're looking up, so it loses its steam there. Good use of a vertical panel. So they realize, like, this thing's got acid for blood, so we can't take it off, we can't kill it. You know, what are we going to do? So they just lock it up for now, and they're going to try to figure out, they're going to try to keep Kane alive while they just try to get back home. As time goes on, they get a call to the infirmary, and the facehugger is off of Kane. It's just gone. He's still alive. He's breathing. They go into the room to investigate, and from this light fixture above Ripley, the tail dangles down, and then it falls, hits the ground. As she bounces back, it's dead. The facehugger is dead. It's hardening. I like that its tail is coming out of the panel there. Most of the time, everything stays within the panel borders, but I like that it's just trailing out there. But they say, you know, Kane's doing okay. His vitals are functioning, and this thing's dead. Ash is going to bring it back to Earth so that they can investigate it. And this page, I really like this page because it's really funny from I think a process standpoint, and I think this is how you could tell that this is watercolor. Is all of these marks here are not marks, like they're not drawn in there. That just looks like what happens when paper gets really wet. So I think when they made this blue background, it either got too saturated with the water from the watercolor, or when they glued it down, they used too much glue. And I don't know if it was a deliberate choice so that they would get that texture, or if it was just like, you know, screw it, just print it. But that it's just really funny that picks up here in the reproduction. You could also see they had to use two separate pieces of paper to do the whole width of the background, because you could see the dividing line where they overlap in the printing. I thought that was really fun. But yeah, everybody's, you know, fine, basically. Kane's vitals are okay, so they're taking off. The ship's back in working order, so they blast off. Boom, get these great explosions, controlled explosions in this case, of the liftoff sequence. The extreme contrast of colors. I love the way Simonson does explosions like this. The lack of lines in the center to emphasize the extreme heat, and then as it goes out further, you get more and more, and then the smoke clouds just look fantastic as well. I think he's fantastic at that. Kane feels better. He's coming to dinner, and he is hungry. The guy has been through a lot. He's starving, and while they're eating, he starts to get some stomach cramps. He's not feeling too good, and he throws himself down onto the table. His fingers go into like this rictus, almost like a fencing response almost. And his chest is covered in blood. Something's going on beneath his shirt. You could see a single line there to indicate that there's something kind of like pushing up. I wonder what's going to be pushing up there. Oh my god! Oh god! It's a chest burster. That's not good for anybody. Great page, awesome splash page. It goes without saying. I like the way that Simonson indicates the blood here. I feel like everybody's instinct when drawing blood is to just create like globs that are kind of closed circuits, but that's not what he does here. It's more of his squiggles. It's knowing how to draw it so that it just looks like flowing, almost water like, just waves of blood. And great color decision here to have the exit wound be all white to emphasize just where the exit is coming from, and then all the red around it. I think that's a brilliant decision. I really love that. And just the drawing itself, it's just fantastic drawing. Walt Simonson's great. Chestburster moves. Yeah, that says here. It moves, and it's moving quickly because we get this DeLuca effect of it just going across the page, and we follow the trail of blood out of the room as everybody's watching in astonishment at what just happened. People are crying. People are freaking out for good reason. And they say, all right, we got to seal off this area. We got to find the little bastard and kill it. And another really good use of color here. I mean, this page, there's so much else going on this page that's interesting to look at. But this usage of purple to indicate like them moving through the blackness of space, to indicate like that's the direction that they're going, is great. Great use of color. So now the hunt is on. They got to go find the facehugger. They find something on their sensors in the vents, and they capture it, but it's just Jonesy the cat. And Harry Dean Stanton lets the cat free, thinking, oh, whatever, we don't need him. But now they're thinking, oh, he's just going to keep showing up on our sensors then now that he's free. So go get him. Go get him, Harry Dean Stanton. So he follows the cat. He separates himself. He's in a horror movie, and he separates himself from the group. What do you think's going to happen? The alien's going to come. We get our first reveal of the xenomorph, full size, looking so good. And a great panel here. I love that you could only just see like the top half of his head, and he doesn't reach. It's in line with the mouth of the xenomorph, and we don't need any background. Just give us plain red. And he's shaken. We see the cartoon lines around him. He's terrified, and the tail whips up behind, grabs him in the back, pushes him forward into the mouth. This is really good motion indication here of the push and where that push is going to, leading to a big old splat. He's dead. Ripley and Yaphet Kotto see it. They freak out. They go to Dallas. Oh, he's big. Son of a bitch is huge. We got to get out of here. We got to do something. We got to kill this thing. They can't kill it. Its blood is made of acid. What do we do? Dallas asks Mother. Mother does not give any sufficient answers. So they are still just trying to figure it out on their own. Dallas goes into the airlock to look, not the airlock, the vent, to look for the creature. And what this leads to is ultimately he's going to get it. But I love this. Again, good use of color here where he's turning a corner in the vent. We got him on the left, and black, and then he comes out with a flamethrower and illuminates that right side to just show what's over there. Good, interesting use of color. He's still moving through the vents, drops down. Lambert is seeing that there's something in the sensor that's coming towards him. She tries to warn him, but it's too late. The xenomorph's right on top of him. This is a funny scene in the movie because you could kind of just tell it's At this stage, you could tell it's just a guy in a suit, and he's kind of cramped into the little vent that they built, and his hands just go like, wah! Go watch that scene; it's pretty funny. Um, but Ripley's in command now because Captain Dallas is dead. But she's still like, hey, we still just need to try to capture this creature and kill it, do something. And Ripley is feeling suspicious of the science officer Ash. She goes to Mother. Now that she's captain, she could talk to Mother directly, and she's able to coax out of Mother that the this little diversion was planned. Their stop on this planet to identify this alien life form was an order from their employer, and Ash, he was in on it, and so he starts attacking Ripley to try to cover up the secret. But he's trying to kill her. He's trying to jam this magazine down her throat. Yaphet Kotto and Lambert jump in, knock his block off like a Rock'em Sock'em robot. He's an android. Who would have guessed? Who would have assumed? He doesn't have the white spouting like milk like in the movie. I wish they had that in here, but I think it would have made things maybe a little too chaotic. But they manage to subdue him. They get his head separated from his body, and he talks about how he really like appreciates this organism at a fundamental level because of just how pure it is. It's a pure, perfect killing machine. And they're like, all right, yeah, good for you. And so they torch him, they blow him up. They are now down to only 3 people left on the ship, which means they can take the escape pod. The escape pod only had 3 seats in it. So they're like, all right, cool, let's get out of here. So they're trying to stock up for that. Ripley gets Jonesy, and unfortunately the xenomorph finds Lambert and Yaphet Kotto. I can't remember his character name, I'm sorry. I think it's not Brett. Oh, it's Parker. Or is it Brett? I forget. Anyway, they're not going to handle this well. Alien grabs him by the face, and we get to see his little second mouth come out and right into him. Again, I love the little white to indicate just the explosion point of the impact point. Ripley finds their bodies. Terrifying panel. Lambert's dangling feet covered in blood. But Ripley running to the escape shuttle. She's focused, she's just got to get out of here. She's just got to save herself. And the xenomorph is tailing her. He's following. She manages to get to the escape pod and take off with 30 seconds left before the Nostromo self-destructs. Because they initiated a self-destruct sequence, of course, just as a last-ditch effort to try to kill this thing off. We get a big boom. I talked about how I love Walt Simonson explosions. It's a little dull, in my opinion, because this is I think all just watercolor. Like there's no holding lines here. This was all just done in the color work. I would have liked a nice Walt Simonson explosion there. Ripley thinks she's gotten away. Her and Jonesy. We got the famous undressing scene, and as she's cleaning up, the xenomorph snuck in there with her. But she is not no damsel in distress. She suits up. She has a plan. She gets herself into her seat, and opens up the airlock and sucks the xenomorph out into space. Tries to hold on the last second. Great, just all black silhouette with the red mouth and the white teeth as it's holding on. But she shoots it, knocks it loose. The gun she's holding has a rope on it. Slides out the door. The xenomorph grabs the rope, is doing everything it can to just hold on for dear life. She hits the big red button that completely obliterates it in fire. We had all purple space, and now we got extreme yellow, orange, red fire. And she drifts off into space. It ends as it began, with the ship, and the silence. The end. Really good end paper. Here is this end paper. And there you go. That is Alien, the illustrated story. I love this adaptation. Walt Simonson is so good. Let me know if you've read this. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Let me know if I missed anything. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. But now it's time to get back to reading.